Well, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 14. Yay! I know, right? Almost halfway through, in a sense, the second season of this show. What are we gonna do for the third season? I don't know. I think my original plan is by then we would start working on like the Montgomery Park, right? Our like Central Park kind of thing. But I don't know if that's necessarily gonna be the case. I don't know. Who knows? I do know what we're doing next episode, which I believe it or not, I don't always know. I don't always have a plan for what the next episode is going to be after I finish one. But I do this time. I actually do know. I'm not going to tell you. You're just going to have to come back and find out, I guess. But yeah, starting off with a build that honestly, after I was done recording, I was not very happy with it. I was like, I don't know about this. I made a few changes, didn't record it, didn't time lapse it, and it looks so much better. So you have to see in the end footage and just kind of, I guess, try to notice the differences. I made it a little bit longer, like towards the camera right now. I also modified some of the roof and everything like that, and it made it just so much better. But this is, I think, overall, after the changes I made, is one of the stronger builds in this episode, along with the very last build in this episode, which is actually my favorite. And despite it being my favorite, it's one that I didn't even know I was going to do. It wasn't in the plan, but I realized that my plan didn't take up enough time, and I accidentally, I'm getting distracted. I should preface this by saying, for this episode, I updated as I started on this to 1.21.5. So it was on 1.21.4 last episode, and it even was like before this build, I was on 1.21.4, and I built a building, time-lapsed it. I updated all my mods and everything, which I hadn't done for a bit because I every time I update mods, something goes wrong. This time, luckily, nothing went wrong. It was a lot easier than it's ever been for me. So that was nice. That was pleasant. It was like a very easy, simple experience. The first time that's ever happened to me. Oh my goodness. But I got all that done. I came back in and realized I couldn't access the flashback footage from the previous build that I did. And it wasn't like a huge one, but it was like a fire station. So it was like an hour of footage that I was probably going to get shrunk down to like 6-8 minutes. So yeah, that was great, because like in an episode that's like 20 to 30 minutes long, 6 to 8 minutes is a huge portion of the video to lose. So I'm like, okay, so I need to build a few more things. But all's well and good, obviously, because like I said, I'm really happy with the last build that I did in this episode. I think it came out really good. But right now we're working on the city hall. It's a relatively small city hall. I would expect city halls to be bigger. I don't know why I thought that, but looking at other city halls in other cities, they're not actually usually that big. I think because state capitals tend to be very large, even in smaller states. Like they're not like insignificant buildings. So I guess in my mind, a big city like New York would have a massive city hall. No, it's a relatively small building. I mean, this is New York City Hall that I'm just bringing into Minecraft here to the best of my abilities with some minor, I guess, changes to fit my needs and my style personally more. But ultimately, that's what it's based off of. I do like the idea in New York that it's in a park setting. So I added mine into a similar type of place. As you can see, the grass and everything. Eventually there'll be a proper park here. Not in this episode. There was going to be a park here in this episode, but I ended up just adding some of my cherry trees and stuff because I thought they looked very nice and like kind of elevated the space and made it stand out against everything else in the area. I did promise last episode I was going to talk a little bit more about government. And I said that the reason why I didn't is because I hadn't done a lot of research, and that is true. I've done more research since then, like a little bit, not too much, but I didn't get very far in before I realized that it was kind of a fruitless thing to talk about. It's not really that important when you're building a Minecraft city unless you're going to be a nerd like I am. If you're truly trying to create a realistic city that actually makes logical sense, you could like say like, oh, I see this existing, then thinking about the government that exists there is important, right? Because government affects architecture, it affects the way cities are planned, like all sorts of things, right? If it's like, let's say you're building a city that is set in, like, I don't know, going extreme here, Soviet Russia, right? It's more likely going to be a master plan city, right? There's going to be a lot of public housing, there's going to be factories, you have to think about what time period it's set in. That's going to affect your city planning. The not just the government style, but also the nationality, right? So like communism doesn't always look the same in every country in terms of architecture, so that's something to think about. Democracy, right? Democratic architecture doesn't look the same. Like if you think about like civic buildings in Canada tend to be a certain kind of style of architecture, whereas in America they're different, right? In America it's very like neoclassical or federal kind of styles, whereas in Canada, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say it's like a neo-Gothic, almost more of a style. I love Canadian, like the parliamentary building and everything, gorgeous, but it's a very different style than what we have more often here in the States. So while it does affect the kind of architecture you may have, for the most part, you know, if you are just saying, I want to build a city that's like an American city, then you can just work with what you find in an American city and just work based on that. If you're not worried about being super realistic, no worries in that. I mean, technically my city, we have no police stations yet. One small fire station and one slightly larger fire station and one technically still incomplete hospital. And this is supposedly going to be a city that houses millions of people. Yeah, no, we're going to need more, more services to sustain that kind of population. So if you're going to be a nerd like me, that is something to think about, what is the population and stuff. But I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like thinking about all of these things, like the history of your city, the how many people are living there, how good is the economy and where does that come from? Like all of that matters just as much as the government style, and none of it matters if you don't care. Ultimately it's like it doesn't have to matter. Now, while I am basing my city off of New York, right, an American kind of city planning or ideals, it isn't one-to-one, because ultimately I am working on a fictional city that I am creating myself, just inspired by New York and using a lot of things from New York, in a fictional country inspired heavily by America, obviously, but it's not America, it's not New York, it's its own thing, and that gives me a lot of like creative freedom, to do things that I want, because right, if you are trying to make a realistic city in America, it has to be probable in America. But I can say like, oh well, I don't feel like building a lot of like fire access ladders on the outside of buildings everywhere, because I think like sometimes they're cool and then sometimes they don't fit the vibe. So if I were trying to create a realistic city in New York or just in America in general, obviously I couldn't do that. That's just not a thing. There has to be, according to laws, there has to be like access to, multiple staircases per certain amount of height in an apartment building or something like that. Or per a certain amount of units per floor. I can't remember exactly what the ordinance is, or the law is. But ultimately, all I have to do is say, well, my city doesn't have that. There's no federal standard. It's a federal standard is different to meet my needs, whatever that may be. So it gives me a lot more leeway. But I think if you want to do it right, you do have to think through it logically, because you have to think, okay, well now why does this country exist? Why does the city big in this country? What's the general culture? Now, I've kind of like, in a sense, chickened out or been a little bit of a coward and just like gone easy with it and just been like, well, it's basically America, but with a different name and different laws, but it's like a relatively similar system just to make it easy. If you wanted to go real nerdy, you could obviously like spend forever. I mean, it's world building, right? There's people who write entire books of world building and you can critique and say, well, that doesn't make sense. And these people spend hundreds of hours probably thinking through what makes sense, and all it takes is one reader to be like, wait a second, no it doesn't, and the writer's like, dang it, didn't think through that one, right? It is so easy to miss that kind of a thing. So ultimately it's just the most important thing is having fun, right? No one's out here claiming to be able to completely realistically recreate a society that isn't real but feels like it could be. There are some people who have been okay with doing that, you know, or like are really good at doing that, but no one is perfect. You know, that's the fact of the matter. Is just that. So ultimately, just understand that you're not perfect either. Have fun with it. You know, do whatever you need to do to have fun with the game. Personally, I find a lot of fun in, you know, coming up with this world building, to try to think through these things, like how is the economy of Newport, this city, based? So, you know, I've decided in the past that in modern day, it's a lot of tourism, right? So that's a part of the reason why there's a lot of trees on the streets, there's a lot of nicer buildings, because I say, well, I want nicer buildings, I want trees on the streets, why are those there? What's the economy? Well, I'm saying, okay, well, it's a big tourism economy. A lot of people visit. There's a lot of, you know, museums or famous buildings in this country here in the city, so it's a big tourist spot. Now, eventually down the road, like way down the road, we're going to be working on a lot more like actual, like what you would think of when you think of tourist city, like big beaches, hotels, things like that. We're still in kind of like the urban core where there's more like tech and corporation headquarters, that kind of a thing, right? That's where this is based. Like I said this last episode, right? This is the government district, this is the financial district, this is where all the corporations, the media is. Like there's a lot of, I imagine, newspapers and, well, just news companies based in this area. In fact, I imagine the building that we're building right now was probably some newspaper and is probably some modern media corporation's headquarters now. But anyways, moving on to the section that's in every episode, recommendations. Last time I promised a TV show, and I probably had one on my mind that I was going to recommend, and then I couldn't think of it. But I'm still going to recommend you a TV show because I promised I would. This show is really good. I don't think it was the one I was thinking of at the time, but it is a really, really good show. Gravity Falls might not be the one you were expecting. I genuinely think it's an amazing show. Like, I'm sure anyone who hasn't seen it immediately, if you haven't seen it and you have to look it up, you're going to be like, oh, it's a Disney Channel show and it's animation. Probably not going to be very good, but it's genuinely the best thing Disney Channel has ever made. Arguably one of the best shows Disney has ever made, period. Like, just completely. It is an amazing show with an amazing plot. It especially, I think, picks up at the end of season 1 and into season 2. It's just an amazing show. I do know one other show that I'm going to recommend with it this week, just because it's also an amazing show and I think one of the best things Disney has made, which is the new DuckTales. Haven't seen much of the old DuckTales, wasn't really big a fan of it. I tried watching it after watching the new one and it just wasn't as good. The new DuckTales is amazing. Watch it. It's so good. And with that, the book recommendation this time is Montauk by Nicola Harrison. Montauk as in the place on Long Island, Montauk, I think is how it's pronounced. It's pronounced. It's not. Okay, what am I saying? It is spelled that way, which I assume I'm pronouncing it right, calling it Montauk. I don't know if I've ever heard a native from the area actually pronounce it. I think I'm the only one who's ever said it, like in my friend group. Because it's on Long Island, so, you know, why would I be? But it's a really good book. I do enjoy it. It's a romance, so if you're not into romance, this is not like high literature or anything. This is a romance, you know. So again, if you're looking for high literature, this is not for you. But you know, if you're okay with romance, if you like romance, then you'll probably like this. I like it. It's good. But yeah, the getting back to the video that you're watching, hopefully. Right, this is, I don't even know what the building was based off of. This I found on Pinterest. I think I mentioned in the how to be a better builder or whatever video that I did, that obviously with reference, most oftentimes I'm on Google Earth or Google Images, but I do use Pinterest a lot as well. It's on and off for me. Sometimes I'll use Pinterest like a ton, which I did for this episode. Like from this building till the end, the this and all the other builds you'll see from this point are all Pinterest based. Like they're based on Pinterest images. In fact, the last 2 builds are from the same Pinterest image, funnily enough. And I was like, I love those 2 builds too much. I've got to do it. So yeah, you can find reference in a lot of different places. This case I found Pinterest, but I do love this building. I think it came out really, really well. It's Art Deco, which can either go really well or really poorly when it comes to building it or recreating it in Minecraft. You know, it's kind of up in arms. You never really know how that's gonna go, but it's fun to do. I do love building Art Deco. I love Art Deco architecture in real life. It's one of my more favorite architectural styles, specifically for larger buildings. If you look up Art Deco house, please do. If you I don't know, it's not good looking. I'm sure there's some people who will see it and be like, wow, that's amazing, how could you not like that? I'm just gonna say right now, I don't understand you. I think it looks awful. It's like, I love mid-century modern homes, but besides that, I don't think there's been a particularly great architectural style for like suburban homes since like the 1910s, you know, at the latest, probably earlier. I do like craftsmen, and I guess that's like more, isn't that more 20s if I remember correctly? I don't know. I'm showing my lack of knowledge in this specific subject. Suburban architecture is not something I really know a ton about, because it's just not something I studied. I was about to say I'm not a suburbanite. Technically, I live in a suburb, but I don't really like suburbs. I just don't think they're the vibe. It's just the only thing that's in my area. You know, you have to take what you can get sometimes. I also wasn't sure about the antenna on this building. I think I like it, but as I was building it, you can kind of see that the fact that I kind of restarted it a few times, that I don't know, I'm not good at building antenna in Minecraft. It's really hard to get that kind of like boxy shape that you want, because you can't build it massive, but you also have to be able to fit things in it, and I'm just not good at it. It's not something I'm great with, but I think it helped when I added like the more modern antenna to it. I genuinely think it actually helped to like sell it as like, oh, this is an antenna tower, you know, like an old-fashioned one but with more modern things attached to it now. And I think it actually really works with the building. The Pinterest image that I was working off for this building had the antenna, obviously, and I just think it really actually helps with like the silhouette of the structure. You know, I haven't actually created the thumbnail yet for this video, and if at this point it should be pretty obvious that creating a thumbnail is going to be difficult, because everything I've built is intermingled with stuff from last episode, right? And then stuff that I added in for this episode, but I haven't really talked about any of those builds that you can kind of see, just because I don't know, they were kind of shown this last episode, and so I don't know, I got in my head that they were last, I don't know. It's confusing for me too, is what I'm trying to say. But the point is, I added a bunch of builds that you can see intermingled around. In fact, some more builds got added during the making of this video, because they're meant to be like this video, but they're all mixed in from stuff that was in last episode, and I don't want the thumbnail to look the same. And I haven't created it yet. I genuinely don't know what I'm going to choose. I might do something a little bit different for the thumbnail. I don't know. Also, I'm wondering, you guys should give me feedback. What do you think of my thumbnails? Because when I first started, I was like, okay, this is simple and stuff. And so I just did it. A lot of Minecraft YouTubers don't do thumbnails the way I do, right? I mean, it ranges from like the almost like kind of clickbaity kind of thumbnails, which depressingly work, you know, with like the extreme colors and everything like that, to more mundane clickable thumbnails where, you know, you have the brighter colors, arrows, and being like noob versus pro or that kind of thing, which they end up being like oftentimes really good videos, but I don't know, that's just not me and who I am. Like, I don't identify with that. Plus I kind of don't like it when people make series but don't have the episode numbers in the thumbnails, or at the very least near the beginning of a title, because it's just really annoying when you're trying to figure out where a series starts. And I notice with City Skylines YouTubers a lot, so many of them will have not very great playlists for their cities, and they don't number the titles and they don't number the episode. they don't put a number on the thumbnail, and it gets really confusing to try to watch it in order, especially if I'm binging it, after the fact, because I don't always have time, but then I want to go back and watch episodes. But the only way to get the right order is to scroll through their video feed, find the first one, and then move through. And if they have multiple series going, all of which have this issue, then it's really complicated to try to figure out which episodes are part of the series, and it just gets really annoying. So I'm like, when I started creating videos again, I was like, I need to have episode numbers in the title. Like I just felt wrong to not have that. Episodes numbers in the title and on the thumbnail, so that it's really easy to follow along. And if you're coming in now and you're watching this episode 14 and you're like, oh wow, I really like this, I want to watch more, it's up to you if you want to start at the beginning or a different time, start at episode 11 after the world tour, or just watch the world tour and then start at episode 11. Like if you don't have a lot of time but you want to watch the series, that's what I'd recommend doing, right? Watch episode 10, because that's going to give you a summary of everything that happened before episode 11, and then watch episode 11 on to now, so then it's only 5 episodes. Yeah, 5 episodes total that you're going to be watching rather than all 14. Like, go ahead and skip the first 10. I like those episodes. I think they were great, but if you don't got the time or can't be bothered, I would recommend, if you still want to understand like what this series is, or watch see what is a part of this city, that's what I recommend doing. By the way, you might have noticed in the last build that it kind of just randomly skips to being completed when it was only half done. That's because I'm stupid. That was a mistake on my part, believe it or not. Yeah, so how that ended up working out is, I think it was because I was watching music. I was listening to music and I got really into the music, so I was stopped, and so I figured I should pause the time lapse because I didn't want there to be an awkward pause where my character isn't doing anything. So I got into the music, I was listening to it, and then I realized, oh, I actually have to do this now. So I got back into building and didn't hit the unpause button, so that is what happened. Which it's kind of annoying, because if you look at it, I was really happy with like the cornice that I did, like the top of that build and everything. I just reused the antenna from the other build. Shh, don't tell anybody. But I was really happy with how it came out. It was actually a struggle. I was kind of just like placing blocks randomly because I didn't know what I was doing, and then it ended up just kind of working. I was like, that's good, I like that. So I just went with it. This building right now that I'm working on, if you hate the roof, don't feel bad. I hate it too. I'm so tempted to get rid of it. The problem is I need the height for the last build, which will be on the left right now of this one. That is the one that I really, really like. And I need the height because the builds have to interact. Because like I said, these two builds were in the same Pinterest image, and they work in a specific way so that they hit each other at roughly a certain height against each other. And I kind of need that. But I don't like the roof. The dormers were so hard. There's not a lot of space. Every time I try to add dormers to a build, it's to the builds that really can't fit dormers ever. So yeah, I kind of do that to myself, but yeah, I just need to work on that. Also, be prepared for the most boring part of the time-lapse. I didn't realize until after I had already exported the time-lapse footage that for whatever reason it took me forever to build this central like courtyard thing going down for like sunlight in the building. It might look like it's going fast, but I don't know, to me this is way too long of a section of time-lapse. I don't know what I was doing. I was having a complicated time while building it, weirdly enough. Like, I don't know why. It was like I kept messing up where I was like copying and pasting things, and the floor heights get a little weird in a couple of places because of how I have those sections like sectioned off. Yeah. You're also gonna have to forgive me that it kind of looks yellow now, like the sun is setting. That's because I wanted to change the sun's angle so that it wasn't in darkness when I was building this build. And I pushed it down to be a little too late, and I didn't realize until just now as I'm doing this. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is very yellow. I thought I got it a little early, but I did not. I very much did not. So that's just great. You might be able to tell what this build is if you know New York. If you don't, I'll tell you now. It's a New York Stock Exchange. That stock exchange, right, on Wall Street. The very famous one. Yeah. I was really happy with how this came out. It might not look like much now, but the roof for this building is what I'm most proud of. I genuinely think it's one of my best rooftop designs that I've ever done. I'm really proud of it. I'm so proud of this building. To me, I think this is the best work I've done in this episode. Might be one of the best bits of work I've done in this season, maybe even in this I don't know. It's I do love it, but I don't know if it's my best work that I've done in this entire series or in the city, but it's pretty close. It's definitely up there. It's top 10. I just think it came out so well, and I hope you guys like it too, because yeah, this roof when I was doing it was tricky, which always the best things are. That tends to be how it is. If you're having a hard time with it, keep on trying, push through, take a break if you need to, and come back to it, because oftentimes the things you work hardest on, when they work, it is so satisfying. But yeah, this roof was tricky because at first I wanted to go with this natural kind of angle, but then I quickly realized that it was way too tall. It was absurdly tall, because there isn't going to be any windows on this level. So that would be a massive space to just have empty when you think about it. So you can see it kind of quickly transitioned. I paused the time lapse, tried to test it to see if it would work, and then I ended up coming up with this. What you don't see is that in the time that I paused the time lapse and came up with this, that was roughly half an hour of just working with different angles and trying to get this roof to look right. Yeah, it was challenging. But you can kind of see what I mean. I was just adding walls and sandstone blocks and all of the armor stands with the armor on them, to try to get this look, right? This very Greco-Roman look. And in the end, I think it came out really well. I think especially with shaders on, all of the shadow of the different depths really help to add to the chaos, because it's not really going to look like much of anything, right? At this scale, and with Minecraft the way it is, you can't really build actual statues in there, or any kind of real scene, especially in vanilla with armor stands. So in a sense, to a certain degree, if you're going to be building something like this, chaos, right? You want it to look so chaotic that it just looks like a lot's going on and you can't tell, rather than nothing is going on and it's just a bunch of random blocks. And when you get up close, it doesn't work as well, but you can kind of see even from this angle, right, from the street, you get the impression, something's up there. There's a scene up there, rather than, there's a bunch of garbage blocks that were randomly placed up there, And symmetry is also, I think, important. Look at that. See, from this angle, looks amazing, right? From the side, it's so good. But yeah, definite apologies for gushing all over my work like that, and just oh my goodness, I'm such a good builder now. I'm really happy with this build in particular. The one you saw right before this might end up changing a little bit. I'm not super happy with that roof, like I said, but we'll see how it goes. But this build, this is not going to change, at least for a very long time. This is something I'm really proud of, and I think all Minecraft builders can relate to this. Probably all artists in general can relate to. Sometimes you do something and in the moment it feels right and feels like what you have to do, and then you take a step back and you realize that is terrible. Why did I do that? And you feel like not an artist. You're like, I supposedly am supposed to be creative, and yet this looks disgusting. How did I come up with this? But, I think that's a part of creating, right? Sometimes you come up with things you're really proud of, you're really happy with, and you genuinely think are going to, stand up to more famous as designers, or it, like, hold its own in the world stage, so to speak. And then other times you build complete garbage and you're like, why did I do that? What was I thinking? We all have our moments, and that should, I guess what I'm trying to get across here is that hopefully that isn't disparaging to you, because if you don't think you're good at building, or if you build something that you don't think is good, that isn't because you're a terrible builder. It isn't because you're never going to succeed, or because you're not creative or something like that. It's just, that's sometimes just how it goes, right? Like, the fact of the matter is that sometimes it just doesn't work out, and sometimes it does. Right? The whole point is you keep going, right? If you love to build, if you love to create artistic things, if you just love artistic things and want to be able to do it, perseverance is the most important thing. Like, just working hard and getting at it, and, keeping going, and just work at it, and eventually you will get better. Eventually you will create something that you will be really, really proud of. But anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, as we're coming now to the end and we're starting to see that final fly through of what we've done. I really do hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you liked it, think about liking. If you want to see more, I guess think about subscribing. Hopefully YouTube will recommend it to you. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye.